Hello everyone, it's Anna, also known as Book Anna. I'm sorry if you're hearing any noise in the background, but that's my AC because it is very, very hot here. I am melting as we speak. Anyway, I am doing a wrap up today. I haven't done this thing in a while. I think the last time I did it was 2.5 months ago, so it is time to do this. I've read not that many books in the last 3 months, so I don't think this video should take too much time to do, and I don't think it's going to be too long. Most of the books that I'm going to be talking about in this wrap up are the books that I've read in vlogs. I'm going to focus more on the books that I haven't talked about yet that I read for the past 2.5 months. But firstly, I'm going to show you some charts that I've made so it is easier for me to track certain things in my reading. So I'm going to be putting chart right over here so you can see what I am currently looking at. So none of the books that I rated in the last 3 months are under 3 stars, which is amazing. It is really great. But also you can see that there is only one book that I rated 5 stars. Under that chart, you will be able to see my format chart, which basically I tracked how many of the books I read physically and how many of the books I read in the ebook form. This time around, I mostly read physical books that I already own. And I'm really glad because of that, because that means that my TBR is going down quite a lot. And I only read, I think, 5 ebooks so far. Under that, you can see from my physical books how many of them I had just bought this year and how many of them I had from year before, or I don't know what time before that. It's kind of divided. It's 50-50 if you take all 3 months. In May, I only read old books, all the books that I had since last year, and new books I mostly read in June and now a bit of them in July. But I'm also quite happy with how this turned out because that means that I am reading my backlist, my old TBR books, and I'm really happy because of that, because that means that none of the books that I have are there just because I don't want to get rid of them. I truly do want to, and I am reading them, so that's great. And the last chart that you can see, you probably don't even understand it because I just wanted it to be pretty, to be honest, but that is genre chart. I just tracked how many of the books of each genre I read. I mostly read horror and literary fiction, and my two least read genres are definitely non-fiction and classics. So, and then you have my pages read, which I read 5,759 pages. I checked out how many pages I've read last time. I did read 200-ish pages less this time around, but that's completely fine. And my average rating was 4.01, which is a lot higher than the last time. In total, I read 19 books. In the last 3 months, I didn't make myself read too much because I had some other things to do, but I also am quite happy with the books that I read. As you can see from my average rating, I did rate them quite highly. Now that I went through some factual things, let's get to my actual books that I read. I'm going to start from the oldest book that I read, well, from beginning of the May and then towards the last book that I read, which was I don't know, 3 days ago. The oldest book that I read is The Shadow Cabinet by June Dawson. This is the second in trilogy, Her Majesty's Royal Coven. This is an urban fantasy book about witches protecting Her Royal Majesty Queen and afterwards the king when Queen dies. But it is based around our world and then just witches are put in it. And it's very, very fun to read. I have so much fun reading these books. I am still waiting for the third one to come out in smaller paperback so I can get it so it fits with the other two that I have. The only thing that I have a problem with in this series is pop culture reference. I really don't like them. They kind of take me out of the book a lot. But I love atmosphere of the book because most of the book is in Scotland and in England, and I love Scotland, and there are like a lot of parts in the book that are in Scotland. So I'm just really enjoying. This book ended in a quite cliffhanger, so I am anxiously waiting for the third one, definitely. Then I read a book from a vlog, so I'm not going to be talking that much about it. It's The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying the Vampire by Grady Hendrix. This is the third book that I read by Grady Hendrix so far, and it's my second favorite. It's definitely a lot better than We Sold Our Souls. I liked it a lot more. He did write that this book is kind of like adult perspective of my best friend's exorcism, and I completely agree with it. The story is quite similar, but we just have an adult women trying to fight this vampire and basically oppression. This book made me kind of angry because of the oppression and because of how women were viewed in 70s, 80s, and even now sometimes in some areas specifically. But I really did like it, and I really did enjoy it, and I like how Grady Hendrix doesn't use that much shock factor, but most horrific part in his books, I mean at least the books that I read, is definitely how some certain peoples are handled and how they're looked at. In this particular case, mostly women, but also Black people, how they're viewed. It just made me kind of angry, but I do like Grady Hendrix's writing a lot. Then I read a book that I don't own, that is Milk Fed by Melissa Broder. I gave this book 3 stars. I did like this book, and I do want to read more books by her. I think I have all of her books on my TBR. There is a specific thing in this book that I really did not enjoy, and it made my rating go a lot lower than I thought it's going to be. It is definitely very triggering for people who in the past had a problem with ED or are currently having a problem with ED. But this book talks about mostly that, and there are a lot of parts that are very erotic, and I don't mind eroticism in books in general. I really don't mind it that much if it's written if it's not written in a cringe way. I really did mind it here because there were like very serious conversation that this book handled, and then not even a paragraph after there was this very erotic sexual scene. I did not enjoy that. It was just too fast how it went between those two, and it made me dislike this book very, very much. I think there should have been a bigger gap between those two things, because this way it just seemed like the serious conversations aren't taken as serious as they should. So that made me put this book 3 stars. When I firstly finished it, I even gave it 2.75 stars, but then as some time passed by, I did bump it up to 3 because I do still think it is a good book, and I did still like what this book had to say and how it handled things. I just think that, yeah, that gap should have been a lot bigger. Then I read my classic of the month, and that was The Picture of Dorian Gray by, oh my god, I just realized that I'm reading from Fable from my reviews, and it says that The Picture of Dorian Gray was written by Dorian Gray, which it wasn't. It was written by Oscar Wilde. But yeah, I read The Picture of Dorian Gray finally, and I gave it 4.75 stars. I definitely enjoyed it very much. I don't think I have anything new to say about this book that nobody else said, but I can just tell you that this book made me think a lot about art and artists, and what is art actually representing? Is it representing the subject of the art, or is it representing the artists and their feelings and their views of the subject of the art? It made me think very philosophically, and I felt very, very smart. Then I read another book in ebook version, and that is Hex by Jenny Fagan. This is a historical fantasy novella. It is based on real events, on witch trials that were happening specifically this book is about witch trial in Scotland, in Edinburgh, and we are following this woman who is trialed for being a witch and who is waiting her execution in dungeon beneath the Edinburgh. And then somebody from future comes and visits her and just is there for her in these final moments, and they are talking. It is a very sad book. It's very, very sad, and it also made me really angry. As you can see, I read a lot of books about women being oppressed in the last 3 months, but it really made me angry, and I think, and I don't know what else to say, it just made me feel, it just made me feel for those women and for how they were treated. This is a book that I gave my book club, like a novella that they need to read. So I'm very interested in what they all think about it. But it is written very beautifully, and it's very short and very concise, and I definitely would recommend it to people who are into that, are into witchy things and witch trials and realistic depictions. And then the final book that I read in May was a reread, actually, and that is Brat by Gabrielle Smith. I love this book. I think I loved it even more upon my reread, just because I love the main character. It's so humoristic the way it is written. It's written like a child wrote it, definitely. It is a plotless book. There's nothing of substance happening in this book. It is completely character driven, and you're just in his head as he's taking these opioids and going through the next few days trying to take all the things out of his late father's house, but he doesn't really want to. He kind of wants to stay there, and the house is falling apart and his skin is falling apart, and he doesn't know what's real, what's not. He's constantly reading these manuscripts from his parents and his grandma, and they're all changing. The characters in them are changing. The plot in them is changing. He doesn't really know what's happening. It's hilarious, and I liked it a lot. It's still one of the best plotless books that I've ever read. Definitely still stands in that spot. The next few books are all going to be from my vlog, so I'm just going to go over them quickly. First one is The Seed by Shanna Porter. This is a sci-fi novella about alien invasion and what would be if alien invasion actually brought utopian feel to the world, and how everybody are going to handle it, and how our main character is handling it. It's not very good. It's not very good. It also made me think a lot. An interesting perspective that I didn't see that much usually when you're looking at these kind of books. They are very, very dystopian. And this is still a dystopian book, but it is kind of utopic. Then I read The Sea Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. This book was a bit too long for me. I really liked the plot and I enjoyed it very much, but the last 100 pages, I was just waiting for it to finish, to be honest. I was really sorry that I kind of started feeling this way about this book, because in the beginning I really, really did like it. The ending was just dragging on for so long and it wasn't that interesting to me, so the ending kind of ruined this book for me. But all in all, I think it's very well structured story, and I really liked how it changed between perspectives and writing style of it. Then I read The Capital of Dreams, which was a bit disappointing for me because I didn't really feel for the character. I am holding it wrong. I didn't really feel for the character. I didn't really care what happened to her. Again, I cannot say this book is bad, but it was just a bit empty for me, and I just didn't have any feelings towards it. So in the end, when whatever happened, I didn't really care. And that's why I gave it 3.25 stars. Then I read Such Lovely Skin by Tatiana Schlott-Bon. I had so much fun with this book. This is a YA horror about doppelgangers, and I really, really had so much fun with it. I don't know what else to say. I read it in a day. It made me remember the books that I read in high school during like first and second grade of high school were mostly YA horror books. And I loved that nostalgic feel that it gave me, and I gave this book 4 stars because it was just so fun. I like how it still had a serious topic, but I still felt joyous whilst I was reading it. Then I read a book that I honestly don't really remember that much, sadly. It didn't stick with me that much, and that is The Nursery by Sylvia Molnar. I gave this book 3.25 stars just because I really don't remember and I didn't read it that long ago. I just know that this book is about postpartum depression, which I think is very interesting subject, and I really like reading books that are about those kind of things. But it was very short. I didn't know how it would be structured, and I didn't really like the way it was structured because I thought it will be mostly about how this woman felt after she gave birth to this child, but it was actually about how she felt before and how she felt for her husband and how their relationship went and everything. And I didn't really care for that part. I really just wanted to understand her emotions after having this baby. But there was this character that I thought was very interesting and I liked very much. It was like her older neighbor from upstairs, and I really liked him. They had a very interesting friendship. Then I read the only book that I gave 5 stars in the last 3 months, and that is Human Acts by Han Kang. Although I gave this book 5 stars, I cannot say this is one of my favorite books of all time. It is historical fiction based on very real events, based on a student uprising in Korea during the 80s. It is heartbreaking. It made me cry. I don't know if it was the day that I read it or it was just this book, but I cried a lot whilst I was reading this book, and it was just really, really sad and upsetting, and it has real characters. I mean, the characters in this book were real people, so yeah, I definitely want to read more of Hong Kong's writings. I really loved the way it was written. I mean, it is translated. I believe the translator is Deborah Smith, and translation is amazing. I think it's very, very good. I really, really liked it. I think it really translated all the feelings that Han Kang put in her original text. It translated all those feelings very well in English, although there are some words and phrases that you cannot translate from Korean because they just aren't the same, but I think she still did an amazing job with it. I really want to read more of Han Kang's book, like her backlist, and I mean, she got Nobel Prize, so I feel like I definitely need to read her books as well. But this was the most heartbreaking book I've ever read, probably. Then I read a book that made me very, very upset and very angry. I know that I said that a lot of books so far made me angry, but this one made me the angriest, if that's a word. And that is Butcher by by Joyce Carol Oates. This is another book that is based on real people and real events that took place during the 19th century in women's asylum, and it follows this Dr. Silas Veer who works in this asylum and basically experiments on women in the asylum. I talked about this book so much in my last vlog. You need to read trigger warnings for this book because it triggered some things that I didn't even know could trigger in my brain, and I felt so angry. I wanted to rip this book apart because of how angry it made me feel, and to know that those are the real things that people did to women back then. Just, oh, I don't even want to think about it anymore. I thought about it for a month whilst I was reading this book, and I don't want to think about it anymore. Now we are on the books that I read so far in July. The first one that I read is Audition by Katie Kitamura. After Human Acts, this is probably the best book that I read so far. I'm even thinking about rereading this book very soon, and maybe it will be even 5-star book for me. It's again very plotless book, but it's written in such interesting way. It's written like you're watching a play, not really. It's still a novel, but their characters are only existing whilst they are on the page, and when they're not on the page, they don't really exist anymore, and every character has a role to play, and our main character is an actress in some parts of the book. In some parts, she is a wife. In some parts, she is a mother. In some parts, she's just an acquaintance, but she's not really all of those things at the same time. And I think the ending of this book really made me like this book a lot. I finally read Changing All Stars by Nana Kome Ajay Prenya. Gave it 4.5 stars. This book also had an ending that I didn't really like that much, but it didn't make me dislike the book completely. This is a dystopian book about a future in which American prison system is broadcasted. Prisoners that signed these contracts are broadcasted. Their whole lives in the prison is broadcasted, and they need to fight in these gladiator-like fights. They need to stay alive for 3 years, and then after 3 years, as they are ranking them and they go to the top that they can go in this ranking system, they are then freed and they can go and live their life as they were never in prison. It is very dystopian, and it is something that I can completely see happening in the future. It's sad. It's sad that it could be very real. But I really liked the writing style of this book. The only problem that I had is there was this point of view from one of the prisoners that I didn't think was really necessary because I didn't really get anywhere. I didn't really get that much from it. I just kind of, whenever it was a chapter from his point of view, I was a bit, I was phasing out a bit. I mean, I didn't want to, but it was just not that interesting to me, his point of view. And other point of views I really did like, because we don't only see from prisoners inside this Big Brother-like fights, but we are also seeing how it looks from the outside, from viewers, from people that love this, and for people who are fighting against this. So it just made me see the world in a complete, and I really liked it. I think the world building in this book was amazing. Then I read my only nonfiction book, and that is Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley wrote this book whilst he was high, whilst he was hallucinating. He was under the influence of this drug called mescaline, which is derived from cactus. And he wrote this, like, it's 2 books actually, but this is like both of those books. The first one is Doors of Perception, and the second one is Heaven and Hell. And he basically talks about human mind and how he thinks it looks inside, because he has this theory that we have all of these doors in our mind, and certain humans can go deeper and some people cannot go deep. They're just surface level in their mind. But he talks about how artists, for example, can go so deep, and that's why they can see all of these little details. And when we are looking at paintings that were painted by these artists, we can see so many details that we aren't able to see. That's basically it's his thoughts. It's very convoluted. It's not that hard to read, but there were definitely parts that just went over my head and I didn't understand anything. I think that's okay. Maybe I will revisit this book. Maybe I will not. But I think I'm happy with the things that I took from this book. And I also am interested in other works by Aldous Huxley. I know that everybody loves Brave New World. To be honest, I didn't like it that much. I like this book but more than I like Brave New World, but I'm still interested because he writes these sci-fi fictional stories with very philosophical views. So I definitely want to see what else he has to say. I think he is an interesting man. He was an interesting man. After that, I needed a break from thinking. So I read Mary by Ned Cassidy, which is a horror book. I mean, it's not that you don't have to think whilst reading this book, but it is more in a. It is one of those more fun books. So Mary, I gave 4 stars. I did like the character. I think that morally ambiguous characters are the best characters, and Mary is very, very morally ambiguous. Definitely, you don't agree with most of the things that she does, but you also kind of applaud her because she can do them and she's able to fight for herself. It is about a woman who is currently seeing certain things. She is, every time she looks in the mirror, she sees her skin falling off and she's becoming this gross, not even humanoid figure. And she feels and she hears certain things, and she goes to doctors all the time, and doctors are always telling her, oh, you're just going through menopause. It's just pre-menopause thing. You're just going through it. It's going to be fine. And she doesn't believe them. Turns out she was right. It wasn't just menopause. It was something else. And her aunt is very sick and she needs to go to her hometown to take care of her aunt. And her aunt is this very, very difficult and very toxic person. And you hate her as a reader from the moment that she is firstly introduced. So yeah, it was very fun. I didn't really like the ending, but it was really fun until the ending point. That's it. And then I read Sour Cherry by Natalie Theodoridou. So this book is a retelling of Bluebird's Wife. It's old story about a woman who is being abused and basically held hostage by her husband, and she is in this house that is like labyrinth and she cannot get out. I never read the original story, but when I finished this one, I wanted to see what it was inspired by. And what I loved about this book very much is because it is written like a fairy tale, like a folk tale, and I rarely read a book that's written in that way and that I like. I really loved fairy tales growing up, but I still want to have that feel but make it more mature. And this book did that. It really, really did that. It really reminded me also of Last Tale of the Flower Bride, because that is another fairy tale book that I really loved, but it was quite mature book. It talked about mature topics. Summary on Goodreads and everywhere. It really talks only about one character of this book, about this character called Agnes, and she's a character that takes care of this man when he was a little boy. She is his nanny. She's not that important. I mean, she's important, but she's not the most important character at all. There are tons of other characters that are mentioned, and she's only there for the first third of the book. So I don't know why they included her so much in the summary, but okay. Anyway, I did enjoy this book. I do think it's a good book. And the book that I read only 3 days ago is called Worry by Alexandra Tanner. This is a literary fiction book about 2 sisters living in New York and their very toxic relationship with each other and with their mother. The older sister is the one that we are following through her life, actually, and she doesn't really like her job that much. She works as a writer for this digital book store. I don't know, they're selling some weird books, like some weird nonfiction books. And she doesn't really like her work. She loves internet, and the thing that she loves the most is going on Instagram and finding Mormon wives and then following them and seeing how they live their life, and then commenting very angry messages in their posts. when they say something that she doesn't agree with, and I thought that was really hilarious. I did like this book. Our main character isn't that lovable. She's definitely not that good towards her sister, and she has a lot of flaws. But again, one of the books that I didn't hear that many people talk about. I do watch a lot of literary fiction recommendations on YouTube, and I have not heard anyone mentioning this book. So I think people should read this book. Another book that I feel is underappreciated. But yeah, those are all the books that I read in the past 3 months. I am quite happy, like I said, quite pleased with the reading that I did, how it turned out, what my rating was. So yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!